Wait, who's going up? Who's going down?
That wasn't me. I went.
Hey everybody, this is Sunglass Rob from Sportrx, and I'm here with
Yeah, boy. Tyler from Sportrx.
The snow is falling, and we are here to talk about goggles. So this is like an all-encompassing, everything you need to know about how to get the right ski, snowboard, winter, snow goggles. So we're just gonna kind of jump right into it, and we got a lot of topics to hit. So we're just gonna go right into what you need to know. I think the first thing a lot of people want to consider is what lens shape they want on a goggle. So we're gonna first kind of talk about lenses a little bit, and we're gonna talk about goggle frames a little bit. The main thing to kind of consider when you're getting lenses is if you want a spherical or a cylindrical lens. So this in my hands is a cylindrical, and this in Tyler's hand is a spherical. And what that means is on a cylindrical goggle, the goggle lens only wraps one direction, kind of like a cylinder, like a pipe almost kind of think about. It doesn't wrap this way. And then a spherical lens like Tyler has now wraps both ways, both planes. It wraps both left to right and up and down.
So you want to look at it from the top, that's obviously horizontal. When you look at it from the side, that's vertical. You're going to see curvature in both directions here. On that, you're going to see curvature in one direction.
So cylindrical goggles is kind of known as like an old school kind of 80s kind of a look. It's definitely what the cool kids are into these days. And historically, cylindrical goggles didn't have quite as good of optics as spherical goggles. Today, most companies like higher end, nicer goggles like this Oakley Line Miner is a better version of a cylindrical goggle. They're made in the same way that spherical goggles are made, where they're not just stamped out, but they're like injected molded, and you're getting the double lens. So it's kind of at this point an aesthetic thing, but I will say if you're a true optical snob and you want the best optics, spherical lenses are still going to give you the best optics. Also, there's a slight fog advantage with spherical goggles because they have that bubble both ways. There's just a little bit more air inside the goggle, and more air, more volume usually means less fogging. So let's talk about lenses and fogging while we're on that topic. Most good goggles, pretty much almost every goggle these days is going to have a dual pane lens. And just like a window at your house, what a dual pane window does is it leaves the cold air outside, then there's a little bit of gap between the next layer of lens and then the layer of lens on the inside. So your heat from your face and the cold from the outside aren't condensing on the same lens, so that you don't have as much fogging. How did that do for dual pane?
That does well. I want to kind of explain the injection mold a little bit. If you probably don't remember, but the cylindrical lens prior to this, and this kind of talks to the quality of both of these, you would remember it would have been just a flat lens, and you'd have to curve it around the goggle shape to go around your face, and optically speaking, that's very poor. Then they started coming out with spherical lenses, and they had to do an injection mold in order to make it work. And so when they started doing that with the cylindrical designs, it helped to make the optics way better, as well as rigidity and overall just feel of the goggle. A lot better quality there.
Nice. So we went over that. We went over the dual pane. You definitely want a dual pane goggle. You should be looking for that. The next thing is if it has an anti-fog coating.
Hang on, Rob. I want to cut in for a minute because we do have kind of a little hidden new to this season.
You're going to talk about toric lenses.
Lens shape tech, which is toric, which doesn't quite fit in the spherical or the cylindrical category. You kind of get best of both worlds. And that is the toric lens, where there is actually a slight curvature this way and obviously more curvature that way, but a really cool new to this season, probably going to be seeing a lot more of it in the future technology, where you get a really cool looking design, but you still get that prime crisp optics.
The Dragon PXV has that. They call it Panotech. It's essentially a toric lens. And then the Anon M4 has a toric version as well, which is Super rad. All right.
dope.
Can I move on now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so all these good goggles are gonna have an anti-fog coating on the inside as well. That's something you wanna look into when you're getting a goggle, but pretty much every Neister goggle these days is gonna have its own version of a really cool anti-fog coating on the inside of the lens, and there's a trick with this. First of all, when you get the goggle, most likely it's gonna have this protected sealant film on it. You're gonna wanna take that off. Sometimes we get calls like, I can't see out of my goggles. It's because that you take that film off. And the reason why that's on there is that anti-fog coating on the inside works amazingly well, but it's a little bit sensitive to cleaning it too much and getting water on it and things of that nature. So obviously you're gonna have to clean your goggle, and obviously if you're in the snow, eventually it's gonna get wet. The idea there is the less you play with it, the better. So if the inside of your goggle is dirty, clean it. If it gets wet, there's a good way to dry it. Kind of the way you want to dry it is maybe get your microfiber bag, or even if you have some like soft tissue or something, and kind of like dab it a little bit. Dab, but you don't want to like rub the inside of that thing. And aftermarket coatings, I wouldn't touch. I've heard toothpaste, I wouldn't touch. Ooh. They're really nice coatings on there. You got to just baby them a little bit, but fog is the enemy, and you got to do what you got to do to kind of keep things from fogging up. The next thing is to talk about anti-scratch. All good goggles these days are gonna have some type of anti-scratch technology, so just make sure what you're interested in is gonna have. All the goggles that Sportrx sells is gonna have anti-scratch. By the way, did you know that the RX in Sportrx means if you wear prescription, you can get a prescription insert in all these goggles. We make these amazing prescription inserts. It's way better than OTGs. If contacts work for you, God bless you, stay with your contacts. But a lot of people, cold weather, dry conditions, fast conditions, contacts don't work well, and that's usually being on the snow. So we make this amazing insert. Okay, we're still talking about lenses. I think probably the most important part about talking about lenses is the lens tint, right? So goggles come in a variety of different lens tints, anywhere from a clear lens to a very, very dark lens. Generally speaking, there's 3 levels of tint. There's going to be something kind of like a low light lens like this, like a yellow lens or something like that. Then there's going to be a sunny day lens that's like a dark gray lens, or a real mirrored lens, or just a really dark lens. And then there's going to be things in the middle, like this jade from Oakley that's kind of like more of an everyday kind of lens. In fact, Smith has a lens called Everyday Chromopop. So there is like a when and a where to wear the right lens. And I think some people don't quite understand why their goggle came with 2 sets of lenses, or what the right time is to wear the right lens. By the way, we have a whole video explaining this in much more detail, but basically a couple of things you want to know. It's better to err on the side of the lenses being too light than being too dark. The more dangerous situation is if it's flat light and you can't see because your lenses are too dark. The less dangerous situation, or it's still unpleasant, but I don't think it's as unpleasant as if it's really sunny and you're wearing a lens that's too light. That's the safer move than not being able to see where you're going when the sun goes down a little bit, or goes behind clouds, or you get some weather. So if it's a bad weather day, you're going to find your low light lens. The low light lens usually intensifies things. It's really bright. If you put it on like on a sunny day at home before you go to the mountain, you're going to be like, what is going on? This is too much. And then you're going to have a much darker lens option sometimes, and that's really good for a bluebird day. There's no weather in the forecast. It's like a beautiful sunny day. It's bright out there. There's snow on the ground that's reflecting. Like, you definitely want some protection. Then you want to go with like a darker lens. And then some people just don't want to deal with it. They don't want to worry about it. They just want to put on a goggle and not think about it and go. Or the conditions that day are going to be variable, and you're not sure which one to take, and you don't want to deal with changing them on the mountain and carrying an extra shield in your jacket or your backpack. And then you want to go something like middle of the road. And that would be like this Jade or Smith Chromopop Everyday Green, different lenses like that. Now, I wanted to say something on that, but I've been talking a lot.
I do want to talk about VLT, stands for Visible Light Transmission. This can be confusing to some people. While you don't need to focus on it too intensely, it is good to understand what those numbers actually mean. What you're going to see is a percentage, and that percentage is telling you how much light of the available light is going to be able to make it through the lens. So you are looking at a 15% light transmission. That's a fairly dark lens. It means only 15% of the light that is available is going to be making it to your eyes. The higher the number, the lighter the lens, the more light that's getting to your eye. The lower the number, the darker the lens, the better the lens for bright light conditions.
You reminded me, he's right, and what you reminded me what I wanted to talk about is the better goggles out there now are all using a newer type of lens technology. Oakley has Prism, Smith has ChromaPop, Dragon has LumaLens, Anon has Sonar. And they're of that variety. And what these lenses do are pretty incredible. The companies now are able to basically manipulate the light spectrum to let in as much contrast as possible and block out the lights that you don't want to let in at different points of the light spectrum. So today's goggle, for example, like the Jade from Oakley, even though this is like an everyday lens and it's a little bit darker than what you would consider a low light lens, I would prefer a Jade in bad weather conditions than like a standard yellow or orange lens from 3-4 seasons ago that doesn't have this newer type of Prism-esque technology. The technology is so intense and so amazing that it's letting one goggle lens do so much more. It's pretty incredible. And if you do have issues in flat light and you do get a lens that's flat light specific with this newer type of technology, for example, like the Smith ChromaPop Storm Yellow, it is unbelievable what it does versus an old school yellow lens. It is just hard to describe in words. You really got to see it to do it out there. So do yourself some justice and make sure if you're in the market for a new goggle, you're looking into getting one of these better lens technologies. I think that was a lot on this stuff. A couple of other things to mention quickly on lenses is photochromatic lenses and polarized lenses. Photochromatic is also maybe known as like a transition lens or a self-adjusting lens. That is a technology that is available through a few different companies where the lenses get lighter and darker on their own depending on how much UV is out there. So if you do want one lens and you are worried about the medium lens not being enough in other conditions, you can look into transition lenses. Dragon actually does a pretty good job with those transition lenses, and they have a wide variety of different options. So some people do ask about like automatic or photochromatic lenses. The next thing we hear a lot about are polarized lenses. Polarized is maybe a buzzword, but it shouldn't be. Polarized lenses cut out a lot more glare, reflective glare that bounces off of water, chrome, snow, the road. And the way polarized works is when the sunlight comes down from the sun, it comes in a vertical wavelength. And when it bounces off something, it comes back vertically and horizontally. And that glare, that blinding glare, polarized lenses eliminate the horizontal wavelength, so they dramatically reduce that glare. Sounds like it would be an amazing thing to have on goggles, but very few goggles are polarized, and there's a good reason why. You want to tell them?
I want to talk to this. So the only way that you can really discern ice from nice snow is the glare that's coming off of it. So if you have a good polarized lens, and this is also a call to actually recommend if you just absolutely want to get polarized, there's no other choice or question for you, don't do it in a pair of sunglasses. You can get some goggles which we don't push too hard, but if you really like the idea of polarized, they're not fully polarized. And so a pair of sunglasses that you get that are polarized are going to be fully polarized. Bad idea. Get a pair of goggles if you must get polarized. Get a pair of goggles.
Bad idea for the snow.
Bad idea for the snow.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
I'm gonna go maybe a little different opinion on you. So here's how my setup goes. I don't like polarized goggles. There are some polarized goggles that are 50% polarized, and that's a lot better. It does knock down just enough glare, but you can still see the ice if you need to. And also, a lot of people like polarized or like goggles on a cold day or a bad weather day or a low light day. That's really when you don't want polarized, because polarized makes things a little bit too dark. But if you're the kind of person who wants sunglasses on a nice, beautiful day, it's not that much ice on a nice, beautiful day, or you're not worried about the ice on a nice, beautiful day, and you just want to rock your shades. I've worn polarized sunglasses on those kinds of days and had no issues. The other thing to consider about polarized lenses is that for some people, and the last study that I've read, it's about 50% of the population, polarization can interfere with depth perception. The way that it cuts out the horizontal wavelength, it can for some people make it a little bit harder to see like what's first, or if there's a mogul, or if there's a bump. And that's maybe one of the more important reasons why not to get polarized goggles, especially if you're going really fast, or if you're one of those like hardcore people.
Hey Rob.
Yeah, maybe that confused them more than it helped them.
I just like that this is a safe space.
Yeah, we can
and
be
that
open.
we can be ourselves, and we can be who we are.
All right, that was a lot about goggle lenses. If you're still with us and you want to learn a little bit more about goggles, let's talk about goggle like manufacturing, frame design, fit design, what's going on there. So what you want to look for in a goggle that fits you well is a couple of things. The goggle itself should make a full seal around your face. So wherever there's foam, the foam should be touching. Now, a lot of people have more of an issue with the foam around their nose and on the bottom of their cheeks. You don't want a gap where you can like fit your finger in there and there's air coming in. And on your nose, again, you don't want a gap, but you also importantly don't want a goggle that's so tight around your nose that you get a little nasally. Like if you're getting a little bit like that now when you're trying on goggles, probably not going to be the best fit for you out on the mountain. So we have an amazing exchange return policy. If you get a pair of goggles from Sportrx and you put them on and the fit's not great, don't take them out snowboarding or skiing. Just let us know and we'll work with you to get a different goggle or a better goggle. So that's one important thing about goggles. The next thing is the foam itself. You definitely want that last layer to be soft and comfortable. Better goggles are gonna have a triple foam. Each foam is going to be a little bit less dense and softer. So the hardest foam is up here, and then you get a little bit like medium grade foam, and then you get like the softest foam here, and this is the sweat wicking kind of foam that's going to be near your skin. What do you think, Tyler?
I think that's important. You mentioned that soft bit, and I had it on my face, and I'm thinking that's exactly right. I'm really glad there's a nice soft.
Well, your face is also so soft.
It looks soft. Don't say that. Antimicrobial. You said that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The better ones are antimicrobial.
Really nice.
I don't like singing because I'm always afraid I'm going to say that word wrong. The last thing to consider too on the strap system is that if you are wearing a helmet, and you probably are at this point, it's nice to have a little bit of silicone on the inside of the strap, and that keeps it from slipping and sliding a little bit too easily. And another thing to talk about helmet compatibility. There's something called a Gorby gap. Tyler, why don't you put on that helmet for us?
Okay.
The idea is that you don't want a lot of gap on your forehead between the helmet and the goggle. So that helmet is pretty much a perfect fit on Tyler.
Pretty good.
It's a medium. And then why don't you put on that Dragon PXV? I love that color, by the way.
That's a pretty cool colorway.
So the idea is that there's a little bit of room between the helmet and the goggle, but not so much that there's a gap, or it's so tight that you're going to be kind of battling for the same real estate. So that's like just about perfect, where it's kind of close. And by the way, all the helmet companies and goggle companies a long time ago kind of got together and decided that the rake of the helmet should be like this and the rake of the goggle should be like that, so that you can get a Smith helmet with an Oakley goggle, or a Dragon goggle with an Oakley helmet, or a Giro helmet with a... They all kind of work well together. If you do go brand specific, there's usually a little bit better integration system, but all helmets and all goggles are pretty much compatible these days. But the idea here is that you don't want, sorry Tyler, you don't want this.
Oh.
And you don't want also where it's so tight that like you're getting like this. So just a little tiny bit of gap, just a little bit of room is just about perfect. How does that setup feel?
This right now?
Yeah.
When I mashed it down on my nose, it doesn't feel great.
In general.
Otherwise, it feels great.
Okay.
It's actually, I'm really digging this this helmet and goggle.
I think you have that helmet.
I do.
I think I can get you that goggle from sportrx.com. So that was a lot of information on helmets and goggles and straps and lens tints. We do have a bunch of videos that might explain some of these things more in detail for you. We hope that video was helpful for you. If it was, we'd love a thumbs up. We'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. If you have any more questions, if you want to know anything about any of this stuff, down in the comment, put it down in the comment section. We will get back to you. And by the way, if you want to give us a call here at Sportrx, we have friendly, knowledgeable opticians just like Tyler,
yes, sir,
that will happily pick up the phone and help you get the exact right setup for your needs.
I want to talk to you.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Been a little too nice to y'all. Now I gotta up price on y'all. Snake eyes on dice for y'all. Shoulders on ice for y'all. Frozen. H6 all the hate. I won't get involved today. Got lost in the ballin' age. I'm flipping the bars. I'm flipping the. On record, off record. I still count wins when they doubt it. On record, off record. I let them take advantage. I was wildin'. On record, off record deals. Tell them talk to Colin for the quote. On